President Bola Tinubu has approved the constitution of a committee comprising state governors and representatives of the federal government to explore the modalities for the establishment of state police. That approval was given on Friday at a meeting the president held with 36 state governors, and which was attended by Vice President Kashim Shettima, the National Security Advisor, the Inspector General of Police, the Director General of the DSS, and some ministers at State House Abuja. Tinubu also endorsed the training and equipping of forest rangers by subnational governments to safeguard human and natural resources in local communities as part of efforts to tackle the prevailing insecurity in the country. Former chairman of Nigerian Bar Association section of Public Interest and Development Law, that's NBA-SPIDEL, Dr. Monday Ubani, joins us now to discuss legal impediments to state police and how to surmount them. He'll also be looking at the call for a shift to a parliamentary system of government as made by some House of Representatives members and how that can be made possible. Good afternoon. Good to have you on Arise News, Dr. Ubani.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Good afternoon.
Of course. Now, could you give us an idea of, or rather a clearer picture of the legal impediments when it comes to the implementation of state police?
Well, under the 1999 Constitution, as amended, it provides for Nigerian police force as the only force that is entitled and under the law and under a duty to protect Nigerians internally. And so the Constitution made a provision that it is clearly the federal government that will service the Nigerian police force that will be in charge of control and command. And so if you are now mulling the idea of having a state police, then you have to tinker with the provisions of the Constitution in order to ensure that the state has some rights allocated to it in order to handle the aspect of state policing. And so it's a constitutional issue. So we cannot run a state police presently, as it were, without amending the 1999 Constitution. And so you have to tinker with it and make amendment and then now ensure that the state now that is willing and has the capacity should be in a position to run state police.
Right, thank you for that. Now, when you look at the historical antecedent of state policing, it's nothing new to Nigeria. We've been there before. However, one of the reasons why we evolved from this process is due to political misuse. Now, my question is, you've already highlighted the fact that there are some changes, constitutional changes that will have to be made. How broad are those changes? Because some people are saying there need to be amendments with regard to the separation of powers at the subnational level as well, which is ensuring that these state police don't become the armed forces of governors. How robust do these constitutional amendments have to be for the concept of state police to actually be feasible and for it to be accountable?
I must tell you that is a very intelligent question. Any constitutional amendment that do not take into account the fears of Nigerians that the governors may likely abuse the powers of the police if given state police. Now, the constitutional amendment must make, specific provision as to abuse. The safety guards, must be made very robust. Now, you have to define one, the issue of capacity, very key, very important. What will you have that will make you capable and have the capacity to run a state police? And so that's why I said that it's not going to be one size fits all. Every state must not be stampeded into running a state policing if they are not willing and ready and they don't have the capacity. So you have to define what makes a state to have the capacity to run a state police. Then now in defining also the usage of the force, of the power of the police within the state, you have to define at what level constitute any likelihood of abuse and what should be put in place in order to neutralize that abuse. And so what I'm trying to say is that we are not ignorant of the fact that some state governors may likely use state police in order to go after their political enemies and begin to utilize it in such a manner that absolute powers will corrupt absolutely. So you have to make a provision. At what point will there be a usage that constitutes an abuse? And if there is likelihood of abuse, what steps will be taken in order to neutralize or mitigate it? Maybe the federal police will have to come in that instance when there is any likelihood or threat of abuse. So all that has to be done in a very robust, constitutional amendment. And I'm saying stakeholders must be involved. It's not something we rush in and get it now, created without those input from major stakeholders who will look at the wheres and wherefores, look at the issue of things that may likely bring a problem along the line and create a provision against it. So it has to be a very robust law that takes into account of the capacity, that takes into account of the likelihood of abuse, which is actually the fears of many Nigerians, why they do not want state police. So that has to be taken care of in terms of legal enactment. Now, having done that, you now watch the situation, how it plays out. If there are more amendments to be done, it's over the time when we see any problem coming up, then we can now also provide against it. No law takes care of everything at the same time, but as we begin to implement the law, why some of us are suggesting state police is that we have operated over a centralized policing system for a long time, and we have not seen the effect. Nigeria is not properly policed, and we cannot police Nigeria in this manner we are presently doing it, and get any positive result. So we must decentralize the policing system, not only to the state, but even to the local government. And let me say this, and I'm saying it here with every sense of responsibility. Whatever arrangement we are making in terms of policing Nigeria, if we do not have administration at the local government level, where the local government administration is allowed to operate, and the chairman of every local government will be the the person in charge of his security arrangement, we may not be able to get it right. So let's decentralize policing system to the state level, to the local government level, because we're a heterogeneous country, with all manner of diversity in culture and religion and language. So there is no way you can run Nigeria the way we're running the policing system that is over-centralized and get any result. And we have used it for many years and we have not gotten results. So the best thing now is that let's think now outside the box. What can we do in order to get Nigeria properly policed? And I'm saying decentralize the policing system even to the local government level and allow local government administration to run effectively.
Well said. Now, Dr. Ubani, we also know you're here to discuss the potential switch from presidential to a parliamentary system of government. And like you rightly said, when it comes to the issue of state police, those will also require a constitutional amendment and also include public referendum, establishing a parliament, and transfer of executive powers, just to mention a few prerequisites. Now, what do you think it would take to enhance the political will and embrace new governing norms to make this a success in the event that we come to that point?
I am not an advocate of a parliamentary system because we ran it before and we had a problem. The level of instability in government at that time, made some experts to look towards the presidential system. And a heterogeneous country like Nigeria cannot afford to run any other system other than presidential. And I have reasons for it. Now, if you are talking about parliamentarian system, you're going to now create two heads of government. You have head of state and you have the man that is in charge of head of government. Now, that is a potential recipe for instability. If an Hausa man or an Fulani man is the prime minister and probably a Southerner is the president, it begins to create some level of unnecessary tension. We're already divided as a nation. So anything that will actually, accentuate, that will increase the level of tension in the country and create some level of instability, I'm not for it. When we talk about parliamentary, what is it all about? It's about governance through the parliament, where the parliament that are rascal can wake up one morning and just pass a vote of no confidence on the government, and that's the end of the government. So it creates a high level of instability. And for a Nigerian system that is clearly, unstable presently, having that system, it is not something I will sit down here as an expert and advocate that we should go for parliamentary system at this point in time, because there was a reason why we avoided it, when we started it in 1960. So having run this, I don't think the problem is with the presidential system. It is just the manner of running it. It's the people who have elected who have not been able to operate the system very well. So even if you change to parliamentary and you don't have human beings that are running a perfect system in a manner that the law has provided, we run into a hitch at the same time. So I think that the best thing is, can we run this presidential system and run it well. Run it in accordance with the law. Let's begin to elect men and women that are capable in order to run this country. Nigeria can be fixed, and we can use presidential system in order to fix our country, not changing from one system to another, then having corruption, having stealing going on in the system. And we think because we have changed to parliamentary, we can be able to change anything. Let's change human, thinking. Let's change the human factor. Let's change the orientation of those who come into governance. Let's change the kind of leaders we elect into power. And I can assure you that Nigeria will be fixed. And it cannot take time for Nigeria to be fixed. Just get the right men and women. I tell you, Nigeria will be fixed.
And in the spirit of that statement that you've just said, of course, we've seen with this current National Assembly over 40 bills concerning constitutional amendment being brought. Of course, we're just discussing state policing and parliamentary today, but over 40 bills, that's a very big number. My question to you as a legal mind is, when we look at these things, should we consider the Constitution as sacrosanct and should it be protected, or is it a living document? Because many critics are starting to say that there's overkill on the recommendation for constitutional amendments.
Now, we have continued with this patch method over time. And if you listen to people who are very sincere about this nation, they will tell you that the best thing for us is to give ourselves a constitution that emanates from the people. What we have been amending over time is a constitution that has been given by the military. So why don't we sit down as a nation, appoint the requisite number of persons, and then make it reflective? Get all others, all other units in the country, the tribes, religious groups, and the people that can give a new brand constitution that will address all the nitty-gritty of our being, of our existence as a nation. And by the time we have it, it will address all these issues. All these amendments will be done over time. To me, it is just a patch method. Let me permit that language. And we have not been able to go far in really addressing some of the fundamental issues affecting this nation. Can we run a proper federal system of government? The over-centralized system of governance is what is keeping Nigeria. There is nothing stopping the South to run their own system. There is nothing stopping the North to run their system. We should not run a system where we have to wait for others to meet up. That is what is actually holding this country down. We ran a system in the 60s where all the regions were doing so well in their respective right because of the constitutional thing we ran, the kind of arrangement we had. But after we over-centralize the system and be running a unitary government, we have not been able to move an inch as a nation. So why don't we go back to 1960 Constitution? 1963 Constitution that was made in order to ensure that every state, every region was moving at their own pace. Every state will gather all the things in their land, in their natural, which is their natural resource, and pay a percentage to the federal government. Why they keep the order? In order to develop their own state, develop their own environment. That is the way a heterogeneous country is run. The way we are running a centralized system that you have to collect everything from the state and take it to the national level and then begin to share. They begin to give you pittance and everyone becomes lazy. Waiting for that particular handout every month is not going to make Nigeria to develop. I would rather prefer a situation that whatever comes from your land and all the states in the country, they're all endowed. They have all the natural resources to run their state. There is no state today, as I speak to you, that God has not endowed with one natural resource or the other. And we can get those things out of our land, pay a percentage to the federal government, and use the rest to run our state and have a country that is functional, have a country that has hope, have a country that our children will be very proud of. The way we are running over a centralized system of this collecting and taking to the national and then sharing cannot make Nigeria a great country. So it's about the leadership coming up with the idea of how we can run this country effectively. Other countries are doing it. Look at Cote d'Ivoire. You watch the football. You watch a country. You see a nation. They are not richer than us. You see the stadium they built. You see the way the country is organized. Go to Rwanda, the same thing. So what is happening with all those countries? It's just leadership. The moment we have the kind of leadership that understand what it takes to be a leader and run a country effectively, Nigeria is going to be one of the best countries in the world. And God has endowed us with all manner of resources, both human resource and natural. So how is it that we're messing up? We're not getting our acts right. It's about leadership. When we get it right, Nigeria is going to be one of the best countries in the world. And it is just a matter of time to get the kind of leadership we want to make Nigeria to be one of the best countries in the world.
Oh, Dr. Ubani, I know you've made it very clear that you're not an advocate for parliamentary system of government, but there is a saying that the definition of insanity is doing the same thing and expecting a different result. Clearly, the the implementation of the presidential system has not gotten us to where we'd like to be as a country. And those who are actually advocates for this are saying that there are potential benefits like more accountability, stronger parties, increased stability, better representation, promoting cooperation, reducing conflicts, and focusing focusing on local aspects as well, and quicker policy making. And overall, they're saying that a parliamentary system can promote greater cooperation, representation, and responsive policy making. So, do you see reason with those who are proposing this, seeing that what we have on ground is not necessarily working?
The truth of the matter is that those advantages we just read out, are actually attributes of presidential system. The truth of the matter is that when you have two heads of government, you have the head of state and all that, I said it's a recipe for instability, especially for a country that is not united as Nigeria. And when you have rascals, who are in the parliament, they can just wake up in fact, almost all the other day and say, look, we are passing a vote of no confidence. And before you know it, another new government will be formed. So I'm saying the system we are running presently is not the problem. The presidential system is not the problem. It's just the human beings that are running the system that is making presidential system not to look as if it is feasible. Look at what is going on in America. America has run presidential system for how many years? And look at how stable. The richest country in the world today and the most stable country in the world. Look at when Trump came and Trump wanted to mess up the system. See how the system treated him. The system, kept him away. So it is important we understand the system that we are using. And that is the presidential system that is clearly a recipe for stability. It brings a lot of, unity. Having a centralized, the president being one in government to run an effective government. But rather than having two sets of government, head of government and head of state, no. It's a recipe for instability. And then the parliament can create problems. They can keep on passing vote of no confidence on any new government. And that can also be a recipe for instability. So I'm saying presidential system is not the issue. It's not our problem. It's just the human beings who are running it. We can have a perfect system where we have the human beings who understand what the system is all about and try to utilize it to benefit the people. Look at our constitution. The constitution says there is no reason for you to be in government if you cannot protect lives and property and the welfare. Are they doing it? Look at chapter 2 of the constitution that makes that provision. Are we following it? There are cool provisions in the constitution, even though it's a military constitution, but we have not been able to follow it. So it's not about the system that we're running presently that is keeping us backwards. It is just the people that are running it. If you run presidential system very well, just like in other nations, you can see what they are doing with their presidential system. They are doing it well. You can't go and copy Britain. Britain's system is different. They are not as heterogeneous as we are. They are one united people, and so their system, it suits them. But the system that suits Nigeria, and I'm speaking here as a lawyer, I'm also speaking as somebody who have studied all this system. The presidential system happens to be the best for us, our system and our soil. But it is all the people that are running it that are messing up the system. That's why we're now looking towards parliamentary. Parliamentary, if you run it with the wrong people, also, it will be a mess. And that is my own proposition and my statement over this.
Now, Dr. Ubani, very quickly before we go, when I think of the parliamentary system, I think of Rishi Sunak and all past British prime ministers and the PMQs, prime minister's questions, when they get grilled, on a weekly basis. Don't you think Nigerians would benefit from having those sessions with President Tinubu, very briefly, or whoever the president is?
The British system has evolved over time. The issue of giving reports to the parliament, either weekly or monthly and all that. I also believe that even under the presidential system, a government that is actually very up and doing should be able to brief Nigerians every day of what is, if possible, a week. Even some governors are doing it. They have interaction with the people. They explain their roles, and they get an input also from the people. So the issue of briefing the House every week is not what makes a good government. Is what are you briefing them about? What are your plans? What are your policies? Presently, we have a government in place and all that. The government should have an effective communication system. by talking to Nigerians, by telling us what they are planning, what they are doing with the economy, what they are doing with the prices of goods, that is skyrocketing. What are they doing with the issue of getting investors into the country? What conducive environment are you creating? The light system is so bad. What are you doing with the energy sector? What are you doing with the issue of security? By the time you are doing this and you are telling people, whom you are ruling, what you are doing, the people will appreciate it. Not that probably you go to parliament every day, that is what makes you a good government. No, what makes you a good government is what are the policies that you have, policy trust. What are the things you are planning? What are the things you have put in place? And how are you communicating those things that you have put in place? In presidential system, you can communicate also. There is nothing that says in parliament, in presidential, you cannot communicate to Nigerians. You cannot talk to them. What are the policies you are mapping out in place in order to make life better for them? So my take, as I said earlier, is just for us to have government that is clearly aware of what their responsibilities are and what they are in government to do. And they begin to do it either weekly, monthly, and begin to tell us what they are doing and how to better our lives. And when we hear those stories, now we begin to cooperate with the government in order for them to succeed. And I think that Bola Tinubu's government is in a position to do that. And I'm hoping and I'm believing that they're already doing it. They have mapping out policies that will better our economy. They say it's going to be some harshness before we get to where we're supposed to be. I'm praying for them to succeed. I'm praying for them to come out with those policies, but they must also communicate to Nigerians what they are doing. How are they doing to reduce the prices of things? What are they doing to attract investors? What are they doing to fix energy? As I'm speaking to you now, I'm running generator. So I want a situation where light can be fixed. Light is very important. Security is very important. Those two most important things. If Bola Tinubu's government does it, we will be there for
Dr. Monday Ubani, would like to thank you for your time here on Newsday. Thank you for joining us.